Hi, everyone. Glad to be visiting on the Zoom couch this morning with writer and editor Kevin Burkhalter. And I'll also say professor as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yeah,
hmm
yeah. So, Kevin, thank you for jumping in, joining me, and talking comics for a little while this morning.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, this is cool. Like I said, I've been following you for a while, and you have some really, really awesome guests on. So
Well,
it's a
thank you.
privilege to hear.
Thank you. Thank you. There's lots of awesome work being made and that has been made for a while, and so I'm glad to celebrate that. I'll mention you've been a writer on projects like Savage Dragon and The Regular Show, and then you've also served pretty extensively in the world of editing with books like Xerxes by some guy. Isn't that Frank Miller? Some guy named Frank Miller, like who
Some
wrote?
guy,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Halo, Alien, and then lots of other worlds as well. So we'll come back around to some of the titles and maybe talk about those experiences or other ones. But I'm always interested because I've been reading comics since I was 7 and I really love celebrating the medium. What connected you with writing and comics in particular?
Well, let's see. So I grew up. I'm one of four boys in a family, and um, you know, so there's always like some media floating around. There was comic books, children's books. There was, movies. I saw Star Wars, practically just like before I could even walk.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I've always been really into stories, and then I was kind of influenced by friends growing up who would cartoon in class. I'd see them cartooning in class, and I was like, that looks so fun. I like reading comics and everything, and slowly started to find a way that was the way for me to make friends was just to doodle stuff for them, um and yeah, from there I just started kind of creating my own characters and putting them in stupid situations, and you know uh really just from there, kind of grew organically. It was always kind of supported by my family, my parents particularly. My other brothers, they were very athletic, and I wasn't so much. And so it was the way for them to feel like, oh yeah, Kevin has this thing. And so yeah, that was kind of really where it started. Like I um just would spend hours in my bedroom just coming up with stories, drawing them, and um yeah, just continued to read. Read a lot of stuff. My first comic that I read was Tintin. It was Tintin Comes to America, or something, that one.
Nice, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was really the first time where I got lost in a story where, you know, I um I felt like I was, watching a movie, like I was reading it. I was and after I finished that, it was like I had time traveled. It's just like, where did I go? Like I just was so immersed in that story that from there it just I needed more. I needed more of that. And so yeah, I started to read all sorts of stuff. Even the comic strips, growing up, that was a must do on the way to school, was to read
Nice.
the comics section. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Um,
and and then deciding to go to art school. I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design, and from there my world just exploded. Where I was mainly reading comic strips and some of the um comic books. I hold on, my peer group coming in, highly influenced by manga. It was kind of
mm-hmm.
the initial wave of people that have grew up reading manga, then hitting art school, and so there was this huge dynamic change that happened. And you know, I learned about manga from my friends and everything, and now I'm obsessed with it. I can't get enough. So
Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like that was kind of from your reading and making, having that experience, going to SCAG, getting to talk with people. That kind of the jump into the next part of your professional life.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I met so many great people at the college. It was it's very true. Like your peers in school, they later become your contacts in the professional world and everything. And so I met a lot of people that really kind of broke in ahead of me. They you know, well, just to name a few. I don't mind name dropping. We're on
Yeah,
a
by all
podcast.
means, by all means. Celebrate some folks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Jarrett Williams, my good friend
Mhm.
Jarrett Williams, we were actually roommates at one point, and he broke in with his comic Super Pro KO while we were
Mhm.
in grad school and everything. So I got to see, I got to kind of witness him kind of get his first book deal and talk with a publisher and get to see him working with editors on it and everything that just saw because I was living with him, very close. And he would come in, we'd talk about, oh yeah, like what the editor wants and what my next move is and everything. And it was really eye-opening, experience just to watch him,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then let's see, Rebecca Isaacs,
Mhm.
who I would later go on to work with on Buffy the Vampire Slayer at Dark Horse. Um, and uh, who else? Oh gosh, well, now I'm gonna put on the spot. Rashad
Mhm.
Doucette, you've had on your
Uh-huh.
podcast.
Uh-huh.
Um, and you know, just a whole group. And so we kind of came in together. Um, and then I had some peers like Whitney Leopard, who's now the uh, head editor at Random House Graphic.
Yeah.
But prior to that, Whitney worked at Boom Studios, and so that's where I kind of got to work on regular show. And I had, the funny story is I was working at Blick Art Materials here in Savannah, and I was trying to, get my comics on the ground, self-publishing this whole time, I
Mhm.
and had this, I love regular show. And I had this idea for a story. And I knew Whitney was starting to work on regular show. And so I came up with this idea. I was like, oh gosh. And this is kind of my first experience with kind of uh reaching out and to a contact in the industry and just like kind of pitching them.
Mhm.
And I had just so I was a little nervous to do it. And I had bumped into Whitney's sibling Bones at a uh, comic convention, and I said to Bones, I said, "Hey, I've got this idea for a regular show, and I'm not quite sure if it would be cool
Mhm.
to like
Mhm.
reach out to Whitney." And Bones just very matter of factly was like, "Kevin, if you don't do it, then I'm gonna kick your butt." And
Nice.
so yeah, like I reached out and then got to work on several things from there. Um and yeah, that was really exciting. And it was came at this time also in my career where I was, trying to figure out what was next. And I had just gotten married and we were living in Savannah, and Portland, Oregon was always on my radar. I had a bunch of friends like Ron Chan and Kat Ferris and Patrick Reynolds,
Mhm.
uh, and they had all moved out to Portland, Oregon. So it was on my radar as a very comics friendly place. And so we decided we were going to move out there. So my wife and I moved out to Portland, Oregon, and I was doing the regular show gigs, even some Uncle Grandpa stuff, which my students like to laugh at me for that for Uncle Grandpa. Um, but yeah, so we moved out to Portland, Oregon, and I was able to transfer within Blick. And that's another thing I tell my students now, like strategically, if you get a job somewhere, like if it's a chain, think about the places you could possibly transfer to that might be more advantageous to landing artwork, art art jobs and everything. So
Hmm.
uh, that I was able to transfer through Blick out there, and while I was out there, one day I was working at the art store, and one of my friends, again, networking is so important. Um, One of my friends who was a roommate to a really good friend of mine, Hunter Clark,
Hmm. Hmm.
and uh, they came in and they just started asking me like, how is like in Portland? What was I doing? And I was like, oh yeah, I've just been applying around to different jobs and everything. And she was like, well, you should apply to Dark Horse Comics. That's where I work. And I was like, oh, okay. She's like, yeah, we have an opening in the sales department. And I said, well, let's do it. Let's apply. And I got it. I was so thrilled. Working at Dark Horse Comics was one of the best experiences I've ever had. Just based on the people that were working there, especially in the sales and marketing departments. Um, just getting to see how books were made, and not only
Hmm.
that, like how they were sold, and one of the more exciting things of my job was when artists needed more books for cons and everything like that. It was kind of coordinating their shipments, either shipping them directly to the convention or the hotel where they're staying, or to their house and everything. And um, it was cool because actually a lot of my friends were working for Dark Horse, and so it'd
Hmm.
be like,
Hmm.
their editor would be like, well, let me put you in touch with Kevin over at sales, and then they're like, oh, Kevin Burkhalter, like what? So that was cool. It was a lot of fun. And after a while, I was thinking like, well, sales is great, but I kind of have my eye on the editorial department, and
Hmm.
and so there was an opening that happened in editorial for a job opening, and so I went for it, and I was able to transfer over into editorial, and that's where I landed in editorial, and just worked with a lot of great people. Spencer Cushing was just one of my kind of showed me the ropes in a lot of ways, which was really cool to see. Um, David Marshall, again, he's the editor in chief over there. He was a blast to work with. He's so good. Met a lot of really great editors that are still working there. Um, and yeah, it was a crazy job, but it was a lot of fun in a lot of ways.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as someone with an investment in the medium, um, and somebody that's been a creative and kind of worked in a variety of spaces, I imagine that that sets you up in a lot of ways to be an ideal editorial person, because you're familiar with it and you're there to kind of support the creative side.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it really kind of hit me that kind of my first experience giving feedback on pencils, like when the pencils came in. You know, I was like looking at these things, and I was I think it was The Strain. I think it was one of those books, and gosh, I
Hmm.
can't remember the artist's name, but you can draw circles around me, right? Like this guy was just surgical with his pencils, just amazing stuff. But I noticed that like the perspective was a little off
Right.
on his drawings, and so I kind of hesitated. I was like, this guy, he's so good, and am I should I do this? I don't know, like, and Spencer, I believe it was Spencer, was like, yeah, if you see anything, you just let him know. I mean, that's you've got that kind of background and eye for that thing. So here I am. I'm telling this artist who's just amazingly talented. You gotta fix the horizon line, just lower it down just a little bit, and everything like that. And after that, it was that was very comfortable. And I could
Hmm.
speak kind of a language that they understood. At the time I was an editor, um I kind of realized that at that time I was the only editor in that department with a sequential art degree.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, a lot of editors have writing degrees, graphic design degrees, illustration degrees, and now I think there are some editors there with um, comics degrees and so on. But at the time, I realized that I was like the only one. And so, yeah, I had a lot of just appreciation for all the art that was coming in, but then also like really uh, um, learned what when an editor like gives feedback or direction or you know, really kind of learned why it is they needed things to be done in a
Hmm.
certain way. Like at SCAD, it was always like, don't miss your deadlines, don't miss your deadlines, don't miss your deadlines. But it was like, well, what happens if you do miss a deadline? You
Right,
know,
right.
and how do you navigate missing a deadline? Um, so there's a lot of things like that that I get to share with my students all the time. That's like, yeah, don't miss your deadlines, but if you do, this is what you need to do. This is
Hmm.
where you can kind of fix things or help out in a certain way. Um, and yeah, like and a lot of time management. I learned a lot about time management there. It's really, you know, editing is very hard. It's a really, really tough job.
Hmm.
Um, in that you've got a lot of different projects in various stages of finish, and you have teams of artists working on those projects. And so at any given time, you could be working with like 20 to 30 people on different projects, different stages. And so it is, you've got to stay on track. You've got to understand where everybody is in their workflow, if anybody's falling behind. Um, you got to really stay on that kind of stuff. And it
Hmm.
is, it's a lot like I say that it's a lot like whack-a-mole every day, where it's like, oh, we gotta fix this, we gotta follow up there, we gotta change that. Okay, like one thing after another. And that's kind of an exciting aspect to the job, but I think it's a lot less different than what actually people think editors do all day. Like I think
Hmm.
there's this like perception maybe that editors get to like sit back and we get to see all this awesome artwork and be like, yes, approved, yes, approved, oh yes, okay, great. Um, but there's a whole other side of stuff like getting contracts ready, like negotiating rates. Also, like a story gets pitched to an editor, and if they like it, doesn't necessarily mean it gets published. The
Hmm.
editor then has to turn around and pitch that to the editor chief, the marketing department, the sales department. They have to, so your pitch for an artist after you have sent it off to an editor and like it has a whole other life that happens to it, where they look at like projected sales. They look at their schedules. If they have like a too many sci-fi books during the year or something, they might they might not want to publish that because they
Hmm.
already have a bunch of stuff on their schedule. They might have wait around to maybe a year or so before their schedule clears up or evens out. So there's a lot of aspects to editing that you know, was very eye-opening to me.
Yeah.
Uh, and I learned a great deal, like I said, about time management and staying organized, that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, like uh, I think that the main thing that most editors think about is getting the job done.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's a lot of and sometimes that'll uh, be the priority rather than like perfect artwork, perfect story, perfect artwork, perfect books, and everything like that. And that's another thing that, you know, um, I really stress to my students is, done is better than perfect. Just
Hmm.
get
Hmm.
it done. Don't hem and haw over every single line. Um, it really is just about getting the project done or the stage done, moving on to the next person or, the next phase. Um, and yeah, because there's just a list of deadlines that you're constantly looking at every single day. And that list never stops, that never stops. It's so yeah, it's a big thing that I learned being an editor. Yeah, it's while it's a lot of fun and everything, and it's super rewarding to hold a book in your hands that you've edited and work with those artists on from like day one, from page one, but finally have it in your hand is I mean, there's probably nothing better. I mean, there is something better, but I don't know. It just very rewarding in a lot of ways, but a lot of hard work, a lot of really hard work.
I love that insight into some of the behind the scenes and what's it like for you now getting to sort of teach these things and to step into the role of educator to share these experiences with students?
Yeah, I think I take a lot of that experience from Dark Horse and bring it into the classroom. Because there's a lot of things that my students, have never done before, you
Hmm.
know, where it's like their first job that they might rush to accept the job without really kind of looking at what the contract says and how the money side of things is really important, but I'm also talking to them about negotiating their time.
Hmm. Hmm.
A lot of these contracts that get sent out, especially to kind of younger artists and everything, that they're a little like boilerplate. They are just kind of like, you know, uh, the average is like, 2 weeks for pencils, 2 weeks for inks, and I'm talking about like just for a single issue and everything like
Hmm.
that. But you have to know how fast you work and if that schedule is really going to work for you. Because
Yeah.
really it is about like being able to deliver and getting the job done. So there's a lot of stuff like that I kind of bring in. Like, it's okay if you want to negotiate for more time. That's totally standard. That's totally normal. But you have to ask up front for it. You can't wait until you're behind. It's already too late if you've blown your deadlines. You're like, I need more time. It's like, yeah, sorry, you agreed
Hmm.
to,
Hmm.
and the editors, the other thing is that, yeah, like the editors will work with you if you're behind on a book and everything as best they can. It's more work for them to fire an artist and hire another artist than it is to actually, all right, step back. When can you actually finish this? Do we need to delay things? What is it's a lot of work, but in a lot of ways, it makes it easier, and it's a little bit more of a guarantee that, like I said, the job's going to get done and
Hmm.
you can move on. So um yeah, like I kind of, talk about that and like I said, things to do if you're late, how to get out of that situation, and still be able to work for the company.
Yeah.
And also like when to kind of start thinking about your next job. There are a lot of times where an artist, we'd be about, 3/4 of the way done with their current book. And we'd get an email that was like, hey, I've got an idea for my next book. And it's like, ooh, I like that. I like where your head's at. It's like
Hmm.
not waiting till your job is done, but like almost done. And then you follow up with your secondary pitch. And if it's going well, if working with you has been easy, meaning you're on time, and you're not causing any, like, there's not a lot of back and forth on edits and fixes and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
9 times out of 10, we want to work with you again because we can trust you.
Yeah.
That trust is something that is that I tell students is really a big part of, getting more jobs, getting jobs in general. You know, that's why self-publishing is so important, because when you're starting out, editors might like your work, but they don't know if they can trust you to get the job done. And so
Hmm.
self-publishing kind of shows them that, oh yeah, you can finish things. Okay, so you're likely to finish things if you come work with me. So um, there's that aspect to it. Um, oh man, and I just forgot my train of
It's
thought.
okay. It's okay. We were just
But
talking about, yeah, giving advice to students and what that's like.
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, it's uh, it's a lot of professional practices, and I had mentioned Rebecca Isaacs
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
earlier, and Rebecca is a model for me as far as working professionally. Um, Met every single deadline, and oftentimes early, which I talk about that. We want to be, if you're early, that's great, but you don't want to be too early, because then that kind of, there's expectations that change. Like, well, you're delivering work early. They'll expect it early every time, and
Hmm.
that sort of thing. And so, but Rebecca was just so professional. Emails so professionally written, like spoke like a human being, addressed us like we were human beings. Hope your day is going well, not just launching in to business right away. Definitely, was able to really kind of, I learned a lot about like negotiating on feedback and being like, yeah, I'll change this. The reason why I drew it from this angle or drew this person is, for this reason, and backing it up um, with the storytelling reasons, in a way that it wasn't an argument or anything like that. It was an absolute treat, and it made me look good because Rebecca went to SCAD, and I was like, yeah, I went to SCAD too with Rebecca, and SCAD people are all right.
That's right. That's right.
um, but yeah, I really kind of focus on professionalism in uh, in my classes, and I try to tell them, I tell my students this all the time, that you're not considered a professional when you graduate. You're not considered a professional like when you get your first job. You're not considered a professional. um you know no, there's no one saying like you're a professional now at graduation or anything like that.
Hmm.
Professionalism comes from inside. It starts with the day that you decide you're a professional. That
Hmm.
if you treat yourself as a professional, then others will treat you like a professional. So treating yourself like a professional means holding yourself to that professional standard, being able to meet deadlines, taking work very serious, not taking yourself serious, but taking your work very serious. I think is something that I try to get across. Um, but uh, but yeah, it's a personal journey. If you
Hmm.
start treating yourself like a professional, then everyone else is going to start treating you like a professional. You're gonna have more work to show. You're going to create momentum behind you. The people are going to be drawn to your momentum, and who knows who you're going to meet through that, and everything like that. So um yeah, it's something that I kind of say, like, when you decide you want to come to art school, that's kind of the day where you're just kind of deciding that you're a professional, that you want this, that you want to dedicate the next 4 years, or like me, 5 years of your life to studying art. And uh that's a commitment. That's a
Hmm.
professional commitment that you're doing. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't come to college and have that college experience and have fun, but you got to know like kind of why you're here. And you also got to know like that the more you put into it, the better your experience is going to be. Um, If you're just kind of a passive student that you're just like, doing the homework, that's fine. But you're expecting someone to come by and discover you and be like, hey, you're the next best thing. That's
Right.
not super realistic as a student. And so there's got to be a lot of attention paid to networking and also just kind of dedication, and out like looking at the homework, doing the homework, completing the homework, but putting your spin on the homework, I think is something that students don't understand. I think if they check the boxes, the grading criteria and everything, the rubrics,
Hmm.
then they're going to get it translates to, they're going to get a job if they get an A. And that's not necessarily true. No one's asking, there's not an editor out there that's going to ask you for your college transcripts. It's not,
Right.
they're like, what did you get in Professor Burkhalter's scripting class? I
Yeah.
really want to work with you, but I want to know what your grade was in Professor
Right.
Burkhalter's scripting class before I decide. No, I mean, it's if the work is there, if the work is good and schedules work out, you got that job. That's has very little to do with how you perform. You know,
Hmm.
I will say though that like grades, that's grade performance, but it had a lot of how you manage your classrooms experience and showing up every day to class builds
Hmm.
that trust with your peers, meeting your deadlines fulfills that trust with your peers, being able to back up your art, and be open to experience, or open to feedback and new experiences and trying new things. That's another really big thing to do in college. Like, students are like, well, I don't know, like, I got this style, but I think I'm gonna have to change things. But I don't know if they kind of are on the fence of like where their styles are, what they're trying to say,
Hmm.
and they're like,
Hmm.
well, I don't want to change it up because right now because I'm in school. I'm like, but if not now, when? When are you gonna have this opportunity to try new things? Oh, that didn't work out. There's very low risk involved there. I will appreciate somebody that's pushing themselves, trying out new techniques, stepping outside of their comfort zone, um, rather than someone that might be pretty decent, but just very much in their comfort zone and is not open to trying anything else
Hmm.
out. So yeah, um, there's a lot of things that you know are are a part of teaching college, but yeah, like I think it's a lot of fun and it's um super rewarding. It's that thing where you know I'm now just starting to see some of the students that I started teaching 5 years ago,
Hmm.
uh, breaking into the industry, and I'm like, I knew it. I knew it. I could see it then. I could see
Nice.
it in intro class. You had it. And doesn't mean that you were drawing perfect, but you had that approach and you had something that you wanted to say.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
I think that's also something that I tell my students is you gotta think about what you want to say. If you don't want to say anything, then think about like why do you want to create art? Why do you
Hmm.
want to be an artist? It doesn't mean that you have to write everything that you draw, but your art should say something. Your art should make someone feel a certain way when they look at it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So what is it you're trying to say? Uh, and right now I'm teaching a lot of the scripting classes, the writing classes, and so that conversation is super important. And I'm really there's a lot of hesitancy when students come into scripting class because it's an art college and they just want to draw and the majority of that class is writing
Hmm.
and so that feels like learning and school and everything. But I kind of start with the idea that you got to kind of start thinking about what it is you want to say. uh you know as you know, I think about when I was like 20 years old, 21 years old, like I didn't think what I had to say like mattered or anything like that, or I didn't know what I wanted to say, or if anybody cared what I had to say.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and so, a lot of writing is just kind of thinking about like what uh what you want to kind of comment on in this kind of situation that you're putting your characters in. What are you trying to tell us about this situation, and what are your themes running through the work?
Hmm.
What do you want to say about friendship, that kind of thing. And um uh that usually comes from your experiences as a human being on planet Earth. It's and everyone has that. So you don't have to like change the world with your message, but you got to kind of think about like what is it that you're trying to say, um,
Hmm. Hmm.
starting out. And that kind of they kind of see that, and I've gotten some really great results from just kind of not really focusing on making stories perfect,
Hmm.
but really kind of, is your voice here? Is it clear what you're trying to say? If it doesn't matter the genre. Like there's students that want to tell all sorts of different types of stories, all different genres. I read a lot of autobiographical comics. That's my favorite genre. I just
But
can't get enough of them. Yeah, no, no, none of my students really do those or are interested in those. And they really want to tell their high fantasy
mhm,
stories and everything like that. I'm not there to tell them if their idea is any good, because how does anybody know, if something's good? It has to come from a personal place. That's what makes it good, is if there's some voice behind that story that is identifiable, that's relatable in some way. You can tell your stories about wizards and ghosts and vampires and everything like that. Um, but you've got to have something personal in it. You've got to
mhm,
bring something in from your own personal experience, whether that's good or bad. It's got to be something that you want to tell an audience. There's got to be something in there that you're trying to communicate, and not just that stuff looks cool and wouldn't it be great if this happened, and everything like that. But there's got to be kind of a reason you want to tell this story with these characters and everything. Um, and so I'm not grading on that. I'm not grading on genre. I'm not grading on, whether I think it's good. I'm just grading on it. Is this clear? Does this make sense?
mhm,
Can I kind of see these characters that you're writing about? Like, does this feel authentic? So that stuff, like once I realized that when I was teaching that, I'm not here to grade on if somebody's going to be the next bestseller or anything like that. It's just uh, pushing that artist to find their voice, and tell the story that only they can tell, in a certain way. So that's kind of um, the journey I'm on right now with teaching, is showing students that it's okay to be bad starting out. Is just the more you write, the better you're going to get. But when you're starting out, just be thinking in terms of, what do I have to say about this topic or this theme or this scenario, and that will ring true to your readers. And you'll get better and better and better. you know
yeah, yeah. I love that. And love that emphasis on voice, and that's something that people have to cultivate. I feel like everybody has a story to tell in some way, um,
Mhm.
but cultivating that voice is definitely that's the work of it. So I love that.
Yeah, yeah, really. And it builds their confidence, and then they're likely they're more likely to take risks. Like I torture them a little bit because I have them write an autobiographical story starting off,
Hmm.
so that they can't really get all sensational and everything, and they have to write about an experience that they had, and and then I let them loose a little bit later on in the quarter where they get to write their fantasy stories and everything. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think it's coming across. I'm getting actually, because I'm getting some pretty good results from that, and they seem to to not hate it by the end of the.
That's cool. That's cool. I love that idea too of starting from a slightly unexpected stance to
Mhm.
get people thinking about storytelling.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I have one more official question, and I always like to ask about like what currently has your creative attention, as well as the places where people can go to learn more, if it's online or conventions or some of those kind of things.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Well, let's see. What was it? Was it January? Last month, a book that I lettered, that came out from First Second. It's by Jarrett Williams, who I
Hmm.
mentioned at the top of the show, but it's the history of hip hop. Um,
Love it. Love it.
yeah, and so it's out from First Second, and so just super excited that that's out. Jarrett put a lot of hard work into it. It's colored by Joey Weiser, another SCAD alum and artist in his own right. So amazing. Another one of my peers that he's just been so great to see develop and move through the industry. Um, the So yeah, that just came out. Right now, I'm really kind of focusing on my own writing a little bit, kind of stepping back, and thinking in terms of like kind of everything I'm telling my students, like what is it that I want to say? What am I trying to do? And yeah, I think I see my next big projects being in terms of writing them,
Hmm.
uh, for I have got some of my peers in mind, that I'd love to work with sometime. So yeah, I'm just trying to get some ideas going.
Hmm. Hmm. Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool. And as far as spaces where people can connect.
Oh yeah. So I'm on most social media as Kevin Days a Week, all one word. And so that's Instagram. That's well, it's I think I'm on Blue Sky is that
Hmm.
and uh some other places, but Kevin Days a Week. You can read some of my journal comics at kevindaysawek.blogspot.com, and in there I draw about my days at Dark Horse and living in Oregon, and um even a little bit before that too. So
Nice, nice.
yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Kevin, I appreciate the time. I appreciate
Yeah.
your work. Thank you for all that you've shared. And I feel like I've had sort of a preview of a master class here and just thinking about all that goes in both to the production as well as the just the initial creating and thinking through comics. I'm always saying it's a complex medium, and you've spoken so very well to that. So I appreciate the conversation and glad to have you back anytime.
Hey, yeah, I could talk, we could do a whole master class. I'll be happy to come back and talk more anytime. This is great.
Sounds great. It's a plan. It's a plan.